Lines. President Moon Jae-in shares his vision for Seoul-Moscow ties, saying stronger trade relations with Russia can bolster the flagging South Korean economy. Holding steady for now, at least, the Federal Reserve leaves its key policy rate unchanged, but signals that it plans to keep responding to the strong U.S. economy with more rate hikes. Plus, the South Korean government discusses ways to promote the use of driverless cars and measures to try and tackle South Korea's chronic problem with fine dust. Let's start, though, with the South Korean president's efforts to breathe some life into the sluggish local economy. President Moon Jae-in has identified northern countries, Russia in particular, as a trading partner that could be utilized much more to fuel South Korea's continued economic growth going forward. Our Blue House correspondent Shin Se-min starts us off.
President Moon Jae-in said economic cooperation with northern countries will be the source of a new growth engine for Korea's economy, and that both Seoul and Moscow should continue bolstering their cooperation through exchanges on multiple fronts. In the southeastern city of Pohang on Thursday, at the inaugural edition of a forum on inter-regional cooperation, President Moon shared his vision for both Korea and Russia, as well as the Far East.
정부는 한반도의 평화를 통해 남북러 삼각 협력의 기반을 확고하게 달릴 것입니다. 극동 지역은 한반도와 유라시아의 물류와 에너지가 연결되는 핵심 지역이 될 것입니다.
The Korea-Russia Local Cooperation Forum was set up under the deal reached last year in Russia by President Moon and Putin and was initially aimed at building ties between the two countries in the fields of economy, commerce, culture, and education. It brings together representatives from 17 regions in Korea and 9 from Russia's Far Eastern Federal District. Its first edition was held at Korea's biggest steel production center, where President Moon announced the Pohang Declaration, in which the delegates agreed to 5 points, including cooperation in cutting-edge technology and the energy sector. The two sides have also agreed to set up a standing secretariat to facilitate cooperation and agreed to get more regional governments to join the forum. This is part of President Moon's new northern policy, under which Seoul is seeking to step up economic cooperation with the vast Eurasian country in multiple fields like energy, shipbuilding, and transportation, alongside the détente with North Korea. The annual meeting is scheduled to be hosted alternately by the two sides, with next year's session to be held in Vladivostok. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
So, as we saw there, President Moon was in the southeastern city of Pohang on Thursday, where he continued his tour of the country, a tour that's aimed at boosting local economies outside of Seoul. He said the region has been the country's leading exporter of textiles, electronics and steel, but stressed that fierce international competition and protectionism have made it necessary for South Korea's traditional growth engines to innovate. President Moon pledged to support Gyeongsang-Buk-do province by enabling local companies, universities, and research institutes to work together to prepare for the fourth industrial revolution and also to support the region financially. The president also visited the fourth generation light source accelerator, a facility used by researchers to analyze extremely fine particles. Now, top officials from the United States and North Korea should have perhaps been holding dinner after meeting earlier in the day in New York, but the talks were abruptly called off a couple of days ago without explanation at that time. However, on Thursday, South Korea's top diplomat revealed it was North Korea that made the decision to postpone the discussions. Lee Ji-won reports.
In a meeting Thursday of Parliament's Foreign Affairs and Unification Committee, South Korea's Foreign Minister Kang Jung-ho said that according to the U.S., the North was the one to ask that the high-level meeting in New York be postponed. It did so, she said, because both sides' schedules were full. She added that there may have been some difficulty in terms of time, but that the State Department has publicly and definitively said that it will be held at a later date. This is in line with what the State Department's deputy spokesperson Robert Palladino said at a briefing on Wednesday, that the delay is purely a scheduling issue. Secretary Pompeo was to meet the head of North Korea's ruling Workers' Party Central Committee Kim Young-chol in New York on Thursday, but the State Department announced that it was postponed just the day before. Still, U.S. President Donald Trump appears confident that he will hold his second summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un early next year.
Sometime next year, I would say.
Sometime next year?
Sometime early next year.
At a press conference after midterm elections on Wednesday, President Trump fielded questions from reporters at the White House. He confirmed that the change in schedule was due to trips being made without much elaboration, and added that Washington is very happy with how it's going with Pyongyang. While emphasizing that he is in no rush, Trump also mentioned that the sanctions are still on and hinted that North Korea must also be responsive.
Now, I'd love to take the sanctions off, but they have to be responsive too. It's a two-way street. But we're not in any rush.
But there are concerns that the two sides could be heading for a stalemate again. Reports from South Korea and the U.S., citing foreign affairs sources, say that the meeting was actually postponed because the two sides could not resolve their differences. 이지원, Arirang News.
U.S. Forces Korea has a new commander overseeing the roughly 28,000 American troops stationed here on the Korean Peninsula. General Robert Abrams replaces General Vincent Brooks, who has been in the role for a couple of years. Kang Jung-ho reports.
Speaking at the change of command ceremony at Camp Humphreys on Thursday, the new commander of the United States Forces Korea Combined Forces Command and the United Nations Command, General Robert Abrams, said the relationship between the two allies remains unshakable based on mutual trust, and that they will continue to work together for a peaceful and secure Korean peninsula. Emphasizing the importance of unity and commitment to each other, Abrams added that the three commands are bound by a deep and enduring relationship, which is critical to the success of their missions. The new commander faces a series of challenges, including working on the upcoming transfer of wartime operational control and maintaining defense readiness amid diplomatic efforts with North Korea.
As we pursue opportunities, it is our military responsibility to maintain a high level of readiness and fight tonight capability so that we can not only deter, but defeat external threats if we are called to do so.
Abrams graduated from the United States Military Academy in 1982. He has led a number of units in combat operations in Kuwait, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Several South Korean and U.S. officials, including Seoul's Defense Minister Jongun, attended Thursday's ceremony. Taking place in the pouring rain, the change of command ceremony showed no adversary will stop the Allies' combined forces from completing their mission. Kang Jung-ho, Arirang News.
The two Koreas are removing 11 guard posts each from the DMZ, but have agreed to preserve one each for symbolic value. Seoul's defense ministry says the two sides shared an understanding that some guard posts need to be retained. Thus, they each chose one considered to bear the most historical significance. Firearms and troops will be withdrawn from each of those guard posts, but the facility itself will be preserved for peaceful purposes. In a move that was widely expected by pretty much everyone, the U.S. Federal Reserve has left its benchmark interest rate unchanged. Analysts say the move signals the Fed will keep raising rates gradually as the U.S. economy continues to perform really well. Lee-Seung Jae reports.
The Federal Reserve is taking it slow and steady, standing pat on interest rates for now at least. The rate will remain in the 2 to 2.25% range, but the Fed is signaling it will continue to raise rates gradually amid stable economic growth in the U.S. In its policy statement released on Thursday, the Fed acknowledged the strength of consumer spending was behind the strongest economic growth in 4 years in the second and third quarter. With borrowing costs unchanged this month, traders are fairly sure the Fed will raise rates in December. Experts say the decision will immediately lift borrowing costs for Americans with credit cards and other short-term loans. According to data compiled by Bloomberg, the market has priced in a 79% probability that the Fed will raise rates to a range of 2.25% to 2.5% next month. At the pace the Fed is moving, the rate will reach about 3% by the middle of next year, a level the Fed regards as neutral, meaning it will neither stimulate nor discourage economic activity. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Deliberations are continuing at South Korea's National Assembly on the government's roughly $420 billion spending plan for 2019. On this Friday, the Budget Committee will be carrying out an in-depth screening of the budget earmarked for non-economy related sectors. Several of the Assembly's standing committees will also be inspecting the budget in their respective areas, with ministers fielding questions from rival lawmakers. Likely to be the subject of heated debate again is the government's budget set aside for public sector job creation, as well as spending for inter-Korean projects. Now, ways to promote the use of driverless cars and some badly needed measures to try, at least, to tackle South Korea's chronic problem with fine dust at certain parts of the year were the main topics of discussion Thursday at a meeting that was chaired by the country's Prime Minister. Yoon Jung-min reports.
At a government policy coordination meeting on Thursday, Prime Minister Lee Na-kyun and ministers discussed ways to promote autonomous vehicles, which are considered one of the most promising future industries for the country. The government plans to change the definition of drivers and revise laws accordingly. Until now, only humans could be considered drivers, but the revised law will also include an autonomous driving system as a driver. The government will also readjust rules in self-driving situations and scrap regulations. This will allow autonomous vehicles to drive closer together and drivers of such vehicles to use mobile phones.
The regulation reform was introduced today to remove future obstacles ahead of time.
Another item on the agenda was combating fine dust. One of the measures proposed was a policy to remove incentives given to low-emission diesel cars by 2030. The government had previously cut parking fees and congestion tolls for diesel vehicles. The so-called clean diesel policy will be scrapped as diesel cars are considered a main cause of air pollution. Meanwhile, the government said it will shut down more aged coal-fired power plants and work with neighboring countries such as China to tackle air pollution. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
South Korea has inked a deal with Indonesia for 3 more trainer jet aircraft. Korea Aerospace Industry says the contract, which was signed in Jakarta on Thursday, is worth about $90 million. It calls for the delivery of 3 KT-1B trainers, aircraft developed using indigenous tech. The planes are due to be delivered in around 2.5 years from now. Under the deal, KAI will also install new radar equipment and machine guns on planes it sold to Jakarta previously. With this 4th order, the Indonesian military have bought a total of 20 KT-1B trainers plus 16 T-50 trainers. South Korean tech giant Samsung Electronics is in line for 30 consumer awards after the U.S. Consumer Technology Association announced the CES Innovation Awards honorees for 2019. Gov't reports.
CES, an annual electronics trade show organized by the United States Consumer Technology Association, announced on Thursday the Innovation Awards honorees for its CES 2019 event that will take place in Las Vegas in January. The awards recognize innovative products in 28 categories, including smart home, gaming, and wearable technologies. 30 products from South Korean tech giant Samsung Electronics have made the award list, including 7 televisions, 2 household appliances, and 12 mobile products. Samsung said the details of all the winning products will be announced in early January. Among those 30 awards are 2 Best of Innovation awards, including television. The Best of Innovation award is given to products given the highest ratings by an elite panel of judges, including designers and engineers. Samsung Electronics has won the award for the 8th consecutive year in the television category. The company says it has won more than 400 innovation awards over the last 13 years, leading the consumer electronics industry. 고른이 Arirang News.
Now in sports news, Pittsburgh Pirates, they have re-signed South Korean slugger Kang Jung-ho to a 1-year deal worth up to $5.5 million. The deal is for $3 million plus $2.5 million in performance bonuses, meaning Kang will be given the opportunity to match the value of the club option the Pirates declined last week. The 31-year-old has been in a bit of legal trouble in the past. He was denied a U.S. visa in 2017 following his third DUI arrest in December 2016 and missed all of 2017 and all but 3 games this year. Now, despite her small height of just 153 centimeters, South Korean sport climber Kim jae-in's technique and agility has kept her in the top 3 in the world rankings since 2009. For 9 years now. She bagged 2 more gold medals at this year's Sport Climbing World Cup to give her the most golds in the event's history, with a total of 28. Our Won Jung-hwan looks at what the world-class climber expects to happen to her career in the coming years.
Despite returning from international competitions last week, South Korean climber Kim Jae-in is already busy training with a new goal in mind, as sport climbing will make its Olympic debut at Tokyo 2020. In fact, the sport has already made its debut at the Asian stage. She has picked up a bronze medal in the women's sport climbing combined event at the 2018 Asian Games, which took place in Indonesia back in August. And reminiscing about that win, she speaks frankly about the burden of increased public interest in her sport.
The interest that I received from the public was different from the past, as the sport was debuting at a major sporting event. And adding to that, the disciplines at the Asian Games were different from what I have been doing for so long.
Kim is the world number 3 at lead climbing, but for the combined event at the Asian Games, she had to also compete in bouldering and speed climbing, as well as lead climbing. And she doesn't have time to take a break from training, as the Olympic event will also combine the 3 sport climbing disciplines. Practicing for more than 4 hours every day in the gym, she tries to perfect her skills in all 3 climbing disciplines. Her goal for now is to win a place at the Olympics.
The Tokyo Olympics seems so far away, but actually it's now just around the corner. As it is getting closer, my first goal is to be on the 20-member roster.
With the spotlight continuing to shine on her career in the sport, Kim heads to Guangzhou for the China Open next week to pump up her confidence ahead of her push to reach her ultimate goal of winning an Olympic medal. Won Jung-hwan, Arirang News.
Now, we're going to start our world news today with the shocking news that a U.S. Marine Corps veteran has killed 12 people at a crowded bar in California. It's just the latest in a slew of mass shootings in the U.S., but this one has truly stunned a community that has a very strong reputation for being very safe. For more on this and other news from around the world, let's turn as we like to do, to our Noah Adam. So Adam, what's the latest?
Well, Mark, the suspect has been identified as 28-year-old Ian David Long. He was found dead in the office at the Borderline Bar and Grill in Thousand Oaks, a suburb just about 60 kilometers northwest of LA. Authorities believe he shot himself after Wednesday night's rampage. They are yet to determine a motive, however, but Long was suspected of having a history of mental illness. The Ventura County Sheriff said it was possible that Long suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder after serving in Afghanistan. Police were called to his house in April to answer a disturbance call and said he was acting irrationally. Mental health specialists spoke with him and determined that no further action was necessary. The borderline is popular among students and hosts the College Country Night on Wednesdays. This witness described the chaos.
I was just with friends and I saw the shooter walk in and he reached up to the counter like he was going to put an ID or some money up on the counter to pay his cover charge. And I just kind of saw it in the corner of my eye and I heard a gunshot and I focused on him and I saw he was holding a handgun and he continued to shoot at the girl at the front desk. It took a couple seconds for people to realize what was going on, and once that happened, it was just utter chaos.
Wednesday's shooting was the latest mass killing in the United States and it was sure to revive the debate on gun control. The incident came just less than 2 weeks after 11 Jewish worshippers at a synagogue were killed by a shooter in Pittsburgh. Swiss prosecutors have launched an investigation into the suspicious relationship between FIFA president Gianni Infantino and valet prosecutor Ronaldo Arnold. Media reports have claimed that Arnold had received invitations to various football events, such as this year's World Cup and the Champions League final in Milan. Arnold is also alleged to have helped Infantino arrange secret meetings in 2016 with Swiss Attorney General Michael Lauber, whose office is investigating suspected corruption within football's world governing body. Arnold has said his relationship with Infantino is private, and FIFA has insisted there has never been any impropriety in its dealings with the Attorney General's office. Tesla has appointed Robin Denholm as chair of its board, replacing the electric car maker's billionaire founder Elon Musk. She will also be leaving her role as CFO and head of strategy at Telstra, Australia's largest telecommunications company. Musk agreed to step down as chair for at least 3 years and to also pay a fine in a deal with US financial regulators over tweets he made about taking Tesla private. However, he does remain the firm's CEO.
Good morning. We'll need to carry a face mask again today, right after Thursday's heavy rain cleared some of the dust. We'll be affected by another wave of toxic smell from China starting this afternoon, and it's likely to be dusty through the weekend. But temperatures will still be bearable, hovering in the mid-teens in the afternoon, and it will get sunnier as the day goes on. And highs will range between 15 and 18 degrees Celsius, and Seoul and Daejeon will get up to 16 degrees. Higher than seasonal average daytime temperatures will persist for another week or so under mostly sunny skies. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all we have for now on this Friday morning here in Seoul. Do stay tuned to Arirang TV. We'll have our next newscast coming up at noon Korea time with our very own Lee Ji-yoon. But if we don't see you, have a wonderful weekend. Until next time, goodbye.
'18 Overseas TV Audience Survey. Arirang TV and Gallup Korea are conducting research on